In this video lesson, we're going to talk about the DCSync attack. The DCSync attack is trying to impersonate a domain controller and perform Active Directory replication. By doing so, you can extract the entire Active Directory database, which will include usernames and passwords as well. But before you can do this, there are certain privileges which are required. And the two ones are directory replicate changes and directory replicate changes all on the domain object. If you have these two permissions, you can essentially become a domain controller. And the outcome of that is that you could utilize a tool such as Mimikatz that has the command lsa dump DCSync, where you can specify the user account of the user whose password hash you want. And as you can see in the picture currently, we'll get the hash NTLM value for that specific account. And you can do this for any account in Active Directory as long as you have these two permissions. And while there might be some reasons why you want to delegate these permissions to some users, you should really keep this to the bare minimum, because if an attacker obtains these privileges, it is literally game over for your entire forest. So what can we do to protect against DCSync attack? And what I want to outline here is that DCSync is something which we performed when we were talking about Kerberos delegation in the short demonstration we did there. We managed to obtain the Kerberos ticket of a domain controller, and then we performed DCSync. Even though we did not impersonate a domain controller, we became the domain controller in that point. The most common abusive way for attackers is to gain access to an account that has these permissions and use it. And the most common account that requires these permissions is the Azure syncing account. If you have password sync to Azure AD, that account will have these permissions. So protecting that account is really important. And if you have a separate server that is used for password synchronization with Azure, that account or that server has to be really tightened. The security of it has to be very protected. So how do we protect against DCSync? Well, really, you should just not assign the two rights which I just mentioned. If you need those rights, the accounts have to have very long passwords, and computers where these accounts are logged into should have very limited amount of administrators. Really only the people that actually need to log into them to perform some kind of maintenance or something of that sort, and not just because I have a group that is server admins to all servers. Very limited amount of people that actually have business need to be on those devices. While protecting against DCSync is really hard, the detection is much easier, because every time a domain controller replication is performed, an event ID is going to be, or event is going to be logged, and you can look into that. If the event comes from a non-domain controller machine, then you're certain that an attacker is trying to perform this account in your or this attack in your network. Here's an example. On the top image, we have a query for a CM system where we are looking at event ID 4662, and where the username does not end with $, it is not authority, or the username is not window. So by doing this, we're going to get rid of noise, of known things that will occur, and only get alerts on those that are really suspicious. And what we're going to see into the event ID that we have flagged on the picture is exactly that. There's an account which was used to perform directory replications, and it was not coming from the domain controller.